welcome back to the class, everyone. It is not every day that we get an ultra-powerful Sith Lord announce they're coming to the game. But that day is today, with the release of Darth Bane himself. I am pretty pumped for this one, and particularly because I think it's great that we have a ton of powerful Sith in the lore of Star Wars, but I've always found it challenging from this game's perspective to be able to put them in game, because Darth Bane and Sith Eternal Emperor and Malgus and Darth Revan, they're all kind of around that realm of power of a galactic legend. But obviously, because of game balance, we can't have 4 Sith galactic legends running around. So CG themselves have found a way to bring yet another powerful Sith Lord into the game through Conquest. And I realize not everyone's the biggest fan of Conquest. I quite like it for myself and my account because it's a character that I can get with 3 months without having to spend anything because of the size of my roster. So that is where he is coming from, and he is going to be another, and I really want to stress this because this is quite ridiculous, he is going to be another top tier team for Sith in Grand Arena. It's laid out quite plainly that he's going to have Grand Arena Omicrons that are going to let him hit up against Galactic Legends. This is very similar to the current Malgus team that we already have in game, and in addition to that, it's not too far off from the Sith team we have led by Trey, also using SWGOH, that is already doing a lot of fun things. And I'm not going to read the whole 3 paragraphs the Meathead has given here in regards to Darth Bane, but there are 2 things that I want to point out, not just because Meathead's saying them, but also because it really reflects what we have in game, and I think he's honestly just right purely because of logic. And it's that Darth Bane is either going to take pretty much a band of misfit Sith with sufficient relic investment and turn them into a competitive fighting force, or, and this is more relevant for me, he is going to turn into Sith Eternal's lifter, based off of the fact that he is the one who created the rule of 2. By the way, he is like one of the most important Sith in the entire lore of Star Wars in general. He's probably top 3 for me, just with the amount of things that he does, not purely in his power level, but because of the systems he creates. He's one of the ones really responsible for the ultimate fall of the Jedi, because it's his system, the rule of 2, that created a Sith as powerful as Palpatine. But anyways, back to kind of what we're talking about, the game. He's going to be able to have this rule of 2 effect where he's going to come in and he's going to boost Sith Eternal Emperor, and as Meathead is saying, push out Wat Tambor. And maybe there's something specific in Bane's kit that says that there's only 2 allies, or if he's like, okay, they all actually just have to be Sith, so Wat gets kicked out, or maybe Wat just isn't necessary at all, and the counters don't change even a little bit with him thrown in there. And one of the things I do want to draw attention to, that we've kind of already mentioned it, is how is he going to fit into the current roster of maybe not most people, but people who really have a developed, fleshed out Sith faction. And this really doesn't leave us with many options, because when we look at the current Sith we have in game, I actually have every single Sith a relic, which is a little bit rare for me with factions, just kind of how things work. It just so happens that almost every single Sith in the game is either really good or they're a requirement for something else. And we have these 2 really strong teams. I realized at the very end of like Kyber 1, we're getting to a point where you're wanting to combine lesser teams into better teams, super teams rather. That being said, I don't really think these are the 2 teams that you take out. Trey and SWGOH as a defensive staple, it always requires a Galactic Legend or someone who's trying a really risky Gidme counter, even in 5v5. And then Darth Malgus, not only defensively is it quite fun, I realize he's now countered by General Skywalker, a Galactic Legend, or Cal Kestis. However, his offensive viability has been barely explored, and it seems really good. One of the bigger things that he's beating right now that a lot of people don't have a good answer to is Malicos. Now, with the current datacrons, that is kind of always in flux, but it shows he has something to offer when it comes to offense. He's also beating Reva Inquisitors, which is another top-level team. Not quite Galactic Legend, but whatever tier is right below Galactic Legend, these 2 teams are constantly beating them, and they even have a shot at the upper tier Galactic Legends. So we really don't want to mess with these 2 squads too much. Even with Darth Bane, if he's coming in and he's challenging Galactic Legends in the same way, or maybe even a little bit better than they are, you probably don't want to entirely kill this team unless there's like one specific team out there that they super counter, which I guess is a possibility. And then, similar to the Jedi, a lot of our Sith, free agent is the right word, but they end up getting used in a lot of other teams to great effect. Like, yeah, you can make a team with Starkiller without Emperor Palpatine, but it's probably not as great, but even then, it's kind of irrelevant because you have to use at least one Sith in 5v5. So he's always going to take one, assuming you have him. The best First Order teams almost always involve Sith Trooper, whether you're using Supreme Leader Kylo Ren himself or a Hux or crew team. I suppose there's some ways to use our good friend SLKR outside of that, but that only gives you one Sith back, even if you don't do this. Dooku is quite often taken by Trench. If you don't have Trench, I guess you can have another Sith back, so we're at a surplus of 2. Lord Vader obviously is in his own team. He's never really going to be a part of a Sith team. All of a synergy is Empire and Ufu for whatever reason. Darth Vader can be kind of used as a flex in there or outside of there. But after that, like at most, we can take 3 other Sith. Then we have C and Meat Shields. And you don't have to use this. You can take Watt out of the Trench team and put him down here. But that really leaves you only with 2 options. That, as Meathead said, you either get to take the Meat Shields and use them with Darth Bane to do something, or you just shove Darth Bane in here and you get a super Sith Eternal team. And I am really interested to see where this goes. With the introduction, not the introduction, but the recoming of Cal Kestis, not as many counters are needed involving Sith Eternal. So if he gets Darth Bane in the game right now to take him to the next level, that lets him beat higher caliber teams more reliably, like Lord Vader, JMK, etc. That's a huge deal to me. Or maybe our good friend Sith Eternal can actually have a lot of defensive viability. That does sound challenging with the whole rule of 2 and wanting to use them on defense, so not really a guarantee that that's ever going to happen, but just a thought nonetheless. And I do want to show, this is legitimately all the Sith in game. I have the unique function on in the squad builder. I have no Sith left over by the time we do all this. So basically what I'm getting at is we're not going to be able to keep every single team that we have now, and in addition to that, add a Darth Bane team, because we're just completely out of Sith. We have 2 options. You either throw in the C team, or you take all the garbage out of the C team, put that with Darth Bane, and add our good friend Wat Tambor back into C to be able to do great things. So I am pretty pumped. Like I've kind of earlier said, I really do enjoy the character. I think it emphasizes one of the smarter parts of Star Wars, where you had someone who really went for the long game, who was trying to develop a stronger Sith system without them just all constantly killing each other, trying to go for power, but really building up a sufficient force to be able to take the Jedi head on. And it is a little bit poetic that the rule of 2 would allow him to be put together with Sith Eternal, because while he's the one who made the whole plan of the rules 2, it's really Palpatine himself who lived it out and fulfilled it. And I do want to say, if it would feel a little bit bad not to mention this at all, I wouldn't really mind if we got Darth Zana herself, who was the apprentice for Darth Bane, was kind of a part of this whole rule of 2 thing that happened. Maybe we get her before then. I mean, he is a Conquest character, which means we're not going to get him until March or so. So, I mean, they can release a marquee character 1 month before, 2 months before, 3 months before to really elevate him either in the Sith Eternal team or out of it. Probably out of it because, you know, kind of craps on the whole rule 2 if there are 3 of them. That's just kind of how math works. But yeah, I'm really happy to see this character come into game. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I realize there are some concerns about his art. He is going to be coming in the form of the Clone Wars, and I do get people's kind of ill wishes towards that, purely because the character was extremely fleshed out in other mediums that weren't the Clone Wars, and that's where most of the people who have an affinity for him want him. I kind of don't mind. To me, Darth Bane is Darth Bane, and as long as his kit resembles what he does with the rule of 2 and whatnot, I'll be really happy. And ultimately, just really happy to see him come into game. So, as always, thank you guys for watching. Stay awesome.